The Awakening Protocol, Dr. Andre A. Lambert, Christ Church Divinity School. Welcome. You are about to encounter a framework born from both scholarship and lived experience, the Awakening Protocol. It is a conscious intelligence framework for recognizing, supporting, and certifying spiritual emergence. My name is Dr. Andre Alexis Lambert. I serve as President and Spiritual Director of Christ Church Divinity School, and it is my privilege to walk you through this briefing. Our purpose is simple to state and profound to pursue: healing the earth through integrated spiritual intelligence. Let us begin with the crisis. Around the world, millions of people undergo profound experiences of spiritual emergence. And far too often, those experiences are misdiagnosed, dismissed, or pathologized. The result is that experiencers are left without competent support at the very moment they need it most. Consider the scope. Roughly 1 in 3 adults reports at least one anomalous or mystical experience in their lifetime, yet an estimated 75% of those experiencers never disclose what happened to them, held back by fear of judgment or fear of a psychiatric label. The cost is not only personal. Each year, billions of dollars in misidentified spiritual crisis are routed, by default, through emergency mental health systems that were never designed for this work. And the number of standardized clinical protocols that exist for spiritual emergence care in mainstream medicine, 0. That gap between the prevalence of the experience and the absence of competent care is the gap this protocol was built to close. So why does the Awakening Protocol exist? Its mandate rests on 5 commitments. First, to provide a validated, evidence-based framework that can distinguish genuine spiritual emergence from psychiatric disorder. Second, to train spiritual directors, counselors, and clergy in the competent accompaniment of those who are emerging. Third, to protect experiencers from misdiagnosis and from unnecessary medicalization. Fourth, to establish an academically rigorous curriculum anchored in peer-reviewed research and in lived experience alike. And fifth, to advance the convergence of church and broader society, activating this work through deployment inside real institutions. This mandate is not abstract. It is grounded in my own doctoral research, in my years of Air Force service, and in more than 30 years of practice as a spiritual director. At the heart of this work is the Conscious Intelligence Framework, or CI. It is a 4-pillar integrative model that bridges spirituality, neuroscience, psychology, and community. Pillar 1, neurospiritual integration. Here we map how the physiology of awakening intersects with brain science, with somatics, and with the regulation of the nervous system. By grounding emergence in current neuroscience, we can legitimize and contextualize these experiences clinically, rather than dismissing them. Pillar 2, experiential intelligence. This pillar validates anomalous perceptions, mystical states, and non-ordinary consciousness as coherent data. It treats the lived phenomenology of the experiencer as evidence that carries genuine authority. Pillar 3, relational accompaniment. Here, we provide trauma-informed, spiritually competent mentorship across the entire emergence continuum, because healing and integration happen, most of all, within a tuned and embodied relationship. Pillar 4, institutional deployment. Finally, we embed CI-trained practitioners inside clinical, educational, military, and faith-based systems, scaling the protocol's impact beyond the individual and into structural, organizational transformation. Now to the developmental heart of the protocol, the 7-stage awakening framework. Picture a continuum, a map of conscious emergence unfolding across 7 stages. Stage 1, threshold crossing. It begins with a rupture, a loss, an illness, a mystical encounter, a brush with death. Something breaks the old container of identity and signals entry into emergence. Stage 2, disorientation and dissolution. The old sense of self destabilizes. The experiencer may feel fragmented, overwhelmed, unable to function in ordinary reality. Stage 3, the dark night of the soul. A prolonged interior crucible, meaninglessness, grief, spiritual dryness that slowly purges the ego's attachments. Stage 4, illumination breakthroughs. This is the pivot, spontaneous gifts begin to emerge, visions, heightened perception, synchronicities, episodes of extraordinary clarity. Stage 5, integration crisis. Now comes the work of metabolizing these expanded states into a functional daily life, without bypassing them and without suppressing them. Stage 6, embodied service. The experiencer steps into a calling. The gifts are offered outward, healing, teaching, a prophetic voice, within community. Stage 7, sovereign witness. And finally, a stable, non-dual awareness, the capacity to hold paradox, to serve without ego agenda, and to mentor others through their own emergence. What initiates this process? Drawing on both the clinical and the experiencer literature, the protocol documents 8 common categories of trigger. In descending order of relative prevalence, they are the near-death experience, profound loss or grief, intense meditation or prayer practice, psychedelic or entheogenic experience, traumatic events or abuse, spontaneous kundalini awakening, childbirth or fertility crisis, and military combat or moral injury. One caution is essential here. These triggers are not mutually exclusive. Most experiencers report multiple concurrent triggers spanning 2 or more categories at once. The picture is layered, not singular. I want to pause here and speak personally, because I am not only the researcher behind this protocol, I am a first-person witness to its necessity. My own triggers span a lifetime, a near-death encounter in childhood, moral injury sustained across an Air Force career, at home and overseas, profound loss and institutional betrayal, spontaneous mystical experiences beginning in early adulthood, and a sustained contemplative practice across Christian and interfaith traditions. The difficulties were real. There was no competent spiritual accompaniment available to me. My gifts were misidentified as disorder. I knew isolation and the experience of not being understood by my own community. I navigated resistance inside both church and military structures. And I endured dark night seasons that lasted not weeks, but years. Yet from that crucible, giftings emerged. Prophetic perception and visionary capacity, academic theology and doctoral scholarship, institutional leadership, published authorship, and the architecture of this very curriculum, and a calling as a spiritual director and teacher. This is why I say, my dissertation is not merely research. It is testimony. This next distinction is the one that protects people. It is the difference between a healthy spiritual emergence and a genuine psychiatric emergency that requires clinical referral. Competent practitioners must be able to tell them apart. A healthy spiritual emergence tends to be egocentric. The experience aligns with the person's deepening values. Over time, it shows a trajectory of integration and growth. Reality testing and functional capacity remain intact. The person stays relational, seeking community and meaning. Gifts orient towards service, creativity, and wisdom, and the process responds to spiritual accompaniment and grounding. A psychiatric emergency looks different, and these signs call for clinical referral. The experience is ego-dystonic. It feels alien, imposed, terrifying. The trajectory deteriorates. Functioning worsens over weeks. Reality testing is severely impaired. There may be command hallucinations or risk of violence. The person isolates, withdrawing from all relationship. No integration is occurring. There is only fragmentation, and the distress does not respond to grounding, to prayer, or to presence. Let me be clear. When those red flags appear, the competent response is referral to clinical care. The awakening protocol does not replace that care. It trains practitioners to navigate this distinction with both confidence and compassion, and to know when to hand someone to a clinician. How is this competency built? Through an ecosystem of 8 interconnected resources that together form a complete training architecture. 1. The Practitioner Handbook, the foundational field guide for spiritual directors, counselors, and chaplains. 2. The Dissertation Manuscript, the peer-reviewed academic anchor that establishes the theory and research base of the CI model. 3. The Experiencer Workbook, a structured, self-guided tool for individuals navigating their own journey. 4. Peer articles, published scholarship that extends the framework across interdisciplinary journals. 5. The 50-question intake assessment, a screening instrument for identifying emergent stage and individual care needs. 6. E-learning modules, asynchronous certification coursework delivered through the CCDS learning platform. 7. The audio series, guided meditations, lectures, and experiencer narratives for immersive reflective learning, such as the program you are listening to now. And 8. The certification programs themselves, a tiered credentialing pathway from Level 1 practitioner to Level 2 specialist to Level 3 supervisor. Let us look more closely at that intake assessment. 50 questions, organized into 5 domain clusters of 10 questions each, all feeding individualized care mapping. Domain 1, experiential history, mapping the onset, the nature, and the frequency of anomalous experiences, mystical states, and perceptual shifts. Domain 2, differential indicators, distinguishing the hallmarks of emergence from the psychiatric red flags that require clinical referral. Domain 3, somatic and nervous system, assessing Kundalini symptoms, sleep disruption, energy fluctuations, and bodily sensations. Domain 4, relational and vocational impact, examining how the awakening affects relationships, work, identity, and belonging. Domain 5, spiritual resources and stage placement, identifying existing practices and support systems, and mapping the experiencer onto the 7-stage framework. The assessment is administered by certified awakening protocol practitioners, and its results inform individualized care planning and stage-appropriate accompaniment. A framework is only as credible as its outcomes, so the protocol measures its impact across the full ecosystem with clear Year 1 targets. We aim for 500 intake completions, tracking demographics, trigger categories, and stage placement. 100 practitioners certified through the Level 1, 2, and 3 pipeline. 10 pilot institutions, among them seminaries, clinics, veteran and defense department sites, and faith communities. Experiencer outcomes measured at 6 and 12 months, tracking well-being, integration, and vocational functioning. 25 academic course adoptions featuring the curriculum, and grant funding pursued through the Templeton 2026 cycle for research, scale-up, and longitudinal study. Deployment also rests on core requirements: institutional review board-approved research protocols, a practitioner supervision structure, integration with the CCDS learning platform, interfaith and cross-sector inclusivity standards, and a dedicated accommodation pathway for military and veteran experiencers. And so we come to the invitation. The world needs trained witnesses to the awakening that is already underway. The Awakening Protocol invites seminaries, counseling programs, military chaplaincies, healthcare institutions, and faith communities to partner with us in deploying the first evidence-based, spiritually intelligent framework for emergence care. You can enroll in certification or request an institutional partnership through Christ Church Divinity School. You can access the full ecosystem, the handbook, the workbook, the e-learning, and the audio series. I will leave you with the conviction at the center of this work. The protocol is not a program. It is a covenant with the emerging. Thank you for listening.